Good morning, students. Today I, Mohinder Goswami, teacher posted at GHS Batiye, going to discuss with you class 10th lesson, An Excellent Father, second lesson of 10th class. It is taken from prose part, and this is a beautiful story, An Excellent Father, written by Jane Austen. As far as this story is concerned, in this story we will discuss the main characters, Mr. Bennet, Mrs. Bennet, and their three daughters. Their name Lizzie, Kitty, and Elizabeth, and Mr. Bingley, Mrs. Long. We will discuss all of them. But before discussing this beautiful story, so you must know about the writers. That who has written this story. This beautiful story was written by Jane Austen. Her date of birth and place of birth is date of birth 16th of December 1775 in Hampshire, England. So as far as his important works are concerned, so she has written many beautiful stories like Persuasions, Lady Susan's, Lenore and Marini, Emma, and Sense and Sensibility. So the present story which we are going to discuss is taken from the famous novel of her, that is Pride and Prejudice. And in this story you will find that in this story it is an extract from Jane Austen famous novel Pride and Prejudice, and the main theme of the play is marriage. The novel shows how women marry men they are not in love simply in order to gain financial security. So they want to marry with such men who are rich. That's why their life becomes secure. So we will find such kind of things in this story. To meet this man, this is Mr. Bennet, father of three daughters, who was worried about marriage of his daughter, but he did not show this till the end of the story. He wanted to hide this fact from his family. This is Mrs. Bennet, wife of Mr. Bennet, always worried about the marriage of her daughters Lizzie, Kitty, and Elizabeth. So as far as this story is concerned, so I choose a picture medium, and I think you will definitely like it. So this is Netherfield Park house. This is the house taken by Mr. Bingley. And Mr. Bingley, who was he? He was a rich guy who has a lot of income, and people all are interested to marry their daughters to Mr. Bingley. So this is Mr. Bingley. Now in this picture you will find that Mrs. Long told Mrs. Bennet. Who is Mrs. Long? Mrs. Long is the neighbor of Mrs. Bennet, and Mrs. Long told Mrs. Bennet and her daughters about Mr. Bingley, that Mr. Bingley has taken this house and he was very rich man. When Mrs. Bennet told this to Mr. Bennet, so he take little interest in it. Mrs. Bennet told all this to her husband Mr. Bennet, but Mr. Bennet is not interested in it, and in reply he told Mrs. Bennet that I am not interested in your Mr. Bingley, and if you are interested, you go along with your daughters and meet with Mr. Bingley. So in reply, Mrs. Bennet told her, "Oh Mr. Bennet, how can you tease me so? Have you no compassion for my poor nerves?" Poor nerves. Actually, Mrs. Bennet wanted that her one of daughters may get engaged with Mr. Bingley, because Mr. Bingley was a rich man. That's why she was very interested to marry one of her daughters with Mr. Bingley. So Mr. Bennet always pretended that he was not interested in meeting Mr. Bingley, but he was the first one who literally met him. He was the man who was not interested. He was showing to her family that he was not interested in Mr. Bingley, but he was the first who already met with Mr. Bingley in connection with the marriage of her daughters. And in the end, when it was exposed, so Mr. Bennet already met with Mr. Bingley in connection with the marriage of their daughters. So everyone become happy and enjoyed this. To this, Mrs. Bennet told her girls, "What an excellent father you have, girls." That means the whole episode was hiding by Mr. Bennet. He was not showing this to her family that he was the one who already met with Mr. Bingley and make acquaintance with him. So with this, the play ends on a happy note, and everyone enjoyed. So as far as home task is concerned, so you all must read this story again from your book, and then discuss the character of Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet and the title of the story. Title of the story is very important. And in case of any queries, you can contact on my phone number, which is provided there. So hope you have enjoyed this story, and we will meet with the next story in the next lessons. Thank you very much.